Since the dawn of human existence, there has always been an obsession with worshipping people in positions of power. In early civilizations, power was attained by your role in society, your prowess and your skills, or by just being born under a certain bloodline and just being given it. All the fair ways. Our outright love of royalty and deities and military leaders slowly subsided through the generations, probably due to most of them being absolutely awful to large swaths of the population, and the fact that through increased media presence they embarrass themselves on a pretty much daily basis. In the last century, the newest fascination for admiration is the more traditional celebrity, someone who is equally as recognisable but has a job that looks a lot easier to do, that people are more jealous of. It isn't easier, but it looks it. In recent years, levels of fame only for actors or singers are now attainable by anyone with a webcam and an internet connection. This change has had many positive and negative effects on the industry, but a newly emerging one is the idea of planted talent. The music and film industries have always had manufactured stars to an extent, but it should be hard to do in an industry all about authenticity, right? Well, the easiest way to manufacture the authentic person is to just manufacture the person wholesale. This explains the surprisingly huge trend of digital influencers. There have been a few, but the ones I really take issue with, and are strangest to me personally, are the influencers made by the company Brud, KDA, the League of Legends K-pop group, and SM Entertainment's newest group, aespa. aespa? aespa? I don't know how to pronounce that, I'm just going to call them aespa. Honestly though, we've had digital influencers for years now, with AI tubers blowing up a few years back. What's the difference between them and this new trend of influencers like KDA, aespa, and the Brud gang? And all these guys have music careers, so how is that any different to Gorillaz or Hatsune Miku? It's different from the Gorillaz because the Gorillaz was a musical project first and foremost. It actually began as a joke by Blur frontman Damon Albarn and his roommate and Tank Girl creator Jamie Hewlett. It was a spoof on the idea of manufactured pop groups. So what if the band was as manufactured as possible, by being cartoons? What makes the band work though is that it is more than its premise. Albarn wanted the Gorillaz to be the faces of their own band, because he didn't like the limelight after years in the press from Blur. Albarn had always been musically adventurous, even in Blur, and used the opportunity to create genre-bending songs and work with a host of different artists under different styles of music. It was always the music first, even though there was a lot of lore, and the band would never have been as successful without their amazing music videos and distinct album styles and artwork made by Hewlett, the visual component of the band. Though there are distinct characters that appear in the music videos and marketing, there is no mixed messaging about who is actually behind the band. It was a project made by two guys who wanted to do something different to flex their artistic muscles, and I think it really makes both of them work better as part of this team. Hatsune Miku, on the other hand, is entirely manufactured by the company Krypton Future Media as a way to help sell their Vocaloid line of products. Vocaloid is basically just synthesized human-like vocals that can be installed into music programs to act like an instrument, but they can actually sing lyrics. Even though she is also a product, the reason Hatsune Miku is different from the other influencers I'm talking about is because of her lack of authorial intent and personal marketing. She started as a kind of cute mascot in Japan and a weird oddity in the West, but I think what made her fanbase grow is she's so malleable by design. Krypton Future Media made it so the initial few runs of Vocaloid had zero outside personality or real backstory. So much so that two of the characters that have complementing voices, Lin and Rin, have never been given a canon relationship, with most believing they are twins, but the company's official line is that it is up to the user to decide. This is the exact opposite of the crop of AI influencers I'm discussing, as they are built to be sold on their personalities above everything else. To be fair, Krypton and the other companies have started making it common to sell their Vocaloids with personalities and backstories, but the reason they never blow up is because they don't have the malleability of Miku. Miku has so much fan art, alternate universe versions, multiple producers, collaborators, memes. By this point, she isn't really anything more than a generic mascot for the internet. but it's this mascot appeal and a great standout design that made her so popular, and also because she invented Minecraft, one of the most popular games of the last 10 years. So though these fake influencers are influencers, they are all given an air of legitimacy through their music. It makes sense, why sell your product in just one field when you can also use music? A medium that has always harboured stars crossing multimedia lines to make artistic works. Artistic works in like the vaguer sense of the word. What is strange is all three of these product lines are actually made with different purposes by different groups. Brud is a tech startup that has a lot of ex-Google or Apple employees. The company says they are trying to tell interesting stories in the online space, but how are they doing that? Well, two of the characters don't really. Blacko and Bermuda don't really post, aren't on any campaigns, and don't post music basically at all. Bermuda did post a weird cover of Red Hot Chili Peppers Under the Bridge for some reason, and that was like a year ago, and she hasn't posted anything else, which is maybe more strange than just not posting anything at all. But Miquela is the real star of the company. She has her music, vlogs, and posts that run the gambit from typical social media posts to incredibly tone-deaf videos about sexual assault and the impact of race. Are these bad topics for a video? No, of course not. I think maybe the tone of the sexual assault story is a bit too laid back, but it's something that should be talked about. The issue is both of these stories are being told through the medium of advertising, by what is essentially an advertising mascot. Miquela has never experienced sexual assault or racial discrimination, because Miquela isn't real, and unlike other characters who are in fictional worlds and therefore can describe fictional versions of real issues, Miquela is supposed to exist in our world, and therefore doesn't really represent anything within our actual society. I will say the video about race with Mandy Harris Williams, an interesting social media artist, is good in concept. She discusses the ways in which minorities are treated based on how well they fit into the standard aesthetic, light skin, skinny, small noses. The problem with this is what she is saying is true about Miquela. A character who was specifically designed to have light skin, is Brazilian American, so she's at least a little bit ethnic, and who is completely perfect. There is nothing as bad for perpetuating horrible standards of beauty than a perfectly designed character. Brud have also stated that their influencers are as real as Rihanna, which is such a gross statement that I don't think they understand the ramifications of. Obviously, they mean real in the sense that every celebrity is manufactured in some way, through Photoshop, media training, selected information shared about their real lives. The issue is that Rihanna is a real person outside of all these, with thoughts and feelings. Whenever somebody says something mean about Rihanna and she sees that is obviously a personal attack on herself. Miquela is multiple people, a think tank. So there is no personal effect and no personal ramifications for one single individual's actions. Everything is checked off by everyone. Rihanna also has more on the line by being in the limelight, and has to shoulder a lot of those problems by herself. It's hard to be a celebrity as an individual. That's why so many people burn out or go crazy. A company doesn't have to shoulder those kinds of responsibilities. There is also the idea of consent. Rihanna has no consent to what her fans do, be it make weird mashups, make racist images out of her, or create fake pornography. Those are images of her body and she has no consent on how these people treat her. She is turned into a commodity. Miquela is the same, people can do what they want to her, but there is no person at the centre, because Miquela is built to be a commodity. This is nothing against the company, which has a diverse staff of people that have probably lived through these experiences and want to communicate those feelings, but the issue is the medium they have chosen is advertising, and the medium is the message. If you choose to say something through advertising, you have to take the risks and rewards that comes with that being your artistic medium. Unlike Brud, which is a smaller scale advertising company with some less than tasteful decisions, but as a whole I do think is actually trying to say something, I cannot say the same thing for KDA and aespa. They are both K-pop girl groups, but one is designed by Riot Games and is part of their increased push to try and make League of Legends even kind of interesting by creating music and shows around particular characters and skins in the game. The problem is the K-pop characters are premium skins in the game with their own associated merch. It's hard to not read the project as more of a fun experiment to sell premium skins and advertise the game, rather than as an actual artistic project. This is all fine. A bit too trend hopping for my taste, but we live in a capitalist hellscape, so people are doing this all the time anyway. And at least the songs are pretty decent, and I kinda like the aesthetic they're going for. What is a problem, however, is the fact that these characters have social media presences, which is used to create parasocial relationships. Some of the posts are really desperate for attention and very manipulative to the audience. If a real celebrity tweeted these tweets, it would feel needy, but knowing it's tweeted by a marketing company to boost engagement and connection to these characters makes it feel really gross. There are two realities in the marketing. The behind the scenes footage that shows the real K-pop artists from the group G-Idol, and the fake reality where the KDA characters are real, which is best personified by the awfully cringy Genius breakdown. This could have been a good opportunity to hear from the girls behind the project, even if two of the members aren't fluent in English, but instead we have a voice actor giving an awful performance to some really badly written dialogue. This is because there is nothing to say about these songs if you're going to talk about them in these generic ways, because no part of it was the performer's choice, and the songwriters behind the songs are making them to emulate K-pop and for nothing else. There's no discussion on what the songs mean because they don't mean anything, they're just glorified advertising jingles. This is already without even regarding the fact that the idol genre this group is representing has a history of abuse issues and unsavoury contracts. Most groups don't last long in K-pop due to the harsh working conditions and never-ending schedule. Some companies and bands are more lax, or don't see it as much of an issue, but it is a history that exists. Obviously Riot Games just jumped on it because it's popular, but it's kind of uncanny that a gaming company is using the exploitive, soul-crushing idol industry to sell more of their microtransactions, especially a company that has had numerous workplace issues levied against them for crunch and overworking their staff. Not to say the culture of Riot Games is still like that, but it's a connection that I saw. I do think it is slightly more exploitive than Brood, just because Brood does at least seem to try and actually raise awareness of issues, even if they handle them in really tone-deaf ways. Whereas KDA add just to advertise League and sell merch and skins. I mean, is that any different to any other K-pop or music act? No, but pop music itself is the product. BTS are somewhat manufactured, but they are only selling themselves. If BTS was started by Pepsi to help sell more units of Pepsi, all their songs were posted on the official Pepsi channel, and every video had a link in the description on where you could buy special BTS Pepsi merch, I would feel equally as gross. At least BTS can pretend that it's for the music, and there is no business behind the scenes. KDA is inherently a business decision. So this is where aespa comes in, a recently announced project by the villains of the K-pop world, SM Entertainment. It is a standard 4-piece girl group with a PC music-esque aesthetic, kind of like KDA, but the twist is that there are 4 human members and then 4 Vocaloid members, who will interact with the human ones and are supposed to be in a virtual world so fans can interact with them closer than real idols. This is SM obviously copying KDA in some way, but also trying to force the parasocial aspect even more, which K-pop does already have a bit of a problem of. The other part is that this is SM trying to get their foot into digital artists. That way they don't have to deal with these pesky artists who have lives and goals and relationships and hate 10-year plus contracts that screw them out of most of their royalties. Robots will sign any contract you give to them. This partnered with rumours that the idols may be part of SM's hotel chains, and having their own fan meetups in a digital setting is kind of gross, especially in this current climate of people latching onto the most minor human connections. K-pop has always had an issue in fostering parasocial connections because that's its bread and butter. But because of the very guarded and individual focused world of idol culture, it can foster obsessive fan bases, almost as a necessity to a group or performer's longevity. This can lead to idols' lives being in danger, which would be good to circumvent through fake individuals, which may be an angle they tried to use to advertise this group. But the big reason entertainment companies want this is so they can create individualistic experiences, like the hotel or the fan meetups, to exploit fan bases for more money and make more meetups. It won't be as special meeting your fake K-pop idols when they've been in 20 countries that same day. The fact actual K-pop entertainment companies are starting to jump on this trend proves that it isn't going away anytime soon. Miquela and KDA aren't really fads either. Both are gaining bigger and bigger followings and are gaining more legitimacy as time goes on. Miquela even partnered with a leading charity to get young people to vote, which is weird because robots can't vote. So unrelated to voter fraud, what is the future of these kinds of characters? Obviously disembodied social media accounts have existed for years. We have faceless brands with crappy personality quirks, so why not fictional people as well? That's the real issue here, that this isn't going to be a one-time trend, and this is just going to become more and more normalised as time goes on. This is a problem because influencers already have a really negative effect on children's mental well-being, through manipulation, exploitation, or setting unrealistic standards. Imagine how much worse that would be if done by fake people, far better equipped to exploit because that was their intention this whole time. And because of these characters' aesthetics and musical styles, they are very squarely aimed for the underage market, especially the K-pop groups, which is a style of music that is literally aimed at under 16-year-olds and myself. Also, they are just advertising incarnate. Advertising used to be incredibly obvious, but over the last few decades advertising is so ubiquitous that companies have had to really start pushing it in terms of selling to people. And this is the next generation of that idea. Most influencers are the product that they themselves are selling, but these influencers are the product, but there's a giant corporation selling them to you. If you enjoy the music, or the social media posts, or any of the rest of it, then that's fine. But I think it's important to at least keep in mind that these are manipulative tactics being employed, and as adults you are technically able to make a decision as to whether you consent to being manipulated. But the medium and the framing of these characters is inherently sketchy, especially with who they're marketed to. I think it's important to understand though, that artists are already exploited by media companies, especially in pop music and especially in idol culture. So companies coming up with new ways to make their talent more expendable through swapping voice actors is worrying. In a time of a capitalist hellscape where individual artists are less and less respected, and the media drowns out creative voices of minorities, it's important to look at what these characters represent, and at least be mindful of the lasting effects that their successes could have. Social media is a great tool for marketing, and many pop stars have used it as such, like Rina Sawayama, who has a great channel and an amazing body of work. But we should also keep in mind that there are many people who exploit social media and its effects on people, and it's important to try and call out companies and practices that can be harmful to people. Well, that's the end of this video. I hope you don't hate your life too much or worry about the end of humanity in social media. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and a comment and all that stuff, and stick around in case I ever decide to make anything else. If anyone has any ideas about what they'd like me to talk about, then I'd love to hear them. Thank you for watching and stay safe.